Welcome to FinTech TV. I'm Remy Blaire. Abacus Global Management is an alternative asset manager that specializes in longevity-based assets, life insurance markets, and innovative financial technologies. Now, the company manages nearly $3 billion in assets and operates through 4 key divisions focused on uncorrelated investments and data-driven solutions. Now, the firm is effective in life insurance policy settlements as it's purchased over $10 billion in face value since inception, and it has acted as both an originator and a market maker. Now, Abacus trades under symbol ABX and transferred its listing from the Nasdaq to the New York Stock Exchange at the end of 2025. Joining me live here at the New York Stock Exchange is Jay Jackson, Chairman and CEO of Abacus Global Management. Jay, good morning. Thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Well, first and foremost, for our viewers, can you give us an overview of what you do and how do you stay competitive in a crowded space?
Sure, and it's interesting, our space isn't as crowded. We're the only publicly traded company in our entire industry. And what's interesting, we have this huge moat around our business because it's highly regulated in nearly every state, and we provide a huge service ultimately to consumers, meaning that, interesting fact, life insurance is a $14 trillion industry. It's 2.5 times the US residential real estate market. I mean, it's massive. But 90% of those policies never pay a claim because people ultimately just let them go. What we do in the shortest form is that we work with those individuals, help them better understand that their policy has an actual net present value or a current today's market value. We're the originator of the asset, and that's what really sets us apart as an asset manager, because we're not just the originator, we're also ultimately the underlying asset manager. And then one last thing, we talk about data a lot. Think about the data that we're helping people collect on their health, and then ultimately how that applies to their wealth.
Yeah, and Jay, tell us more about the proprietary data and what sets you apart.
Sure, so what's interesting about our data is that we're actually getting in real-time medical data from these individuals so that we can better assess their current life insurance policy's value. That's step one. What we're doing is capturing now the life cycle of that client. Here's what I mean by that. We get their updated medical files, they give us legal permission right via HIPAA. We aggregate all those medical files, and then we get updated underwriting on that individual. That helps us better understand how much longer their lifespan is. Now you know how much longer you have in any given contract. That lifespan data, if you think about it, incredibly valuable. What's the number one fear of someone in retirement? Running out of money, right? Wouldn't it be helpful to better understand how long you're going to be in retirement? Financial services has to change. You can't just throw things at a wall and say, I hope it works out. That's why people put money in their mattress. Use the data behind lifespan and longevity and apply it to all your financial assets. Insurance is just one sleeve. We do alternative asset management, private wealth management, and now we take that data, sell it back to pension funds so they better understand how they're managing their own clients.
Yeah, and you bring up an important point because we know that people are living longer, and when we talk about the generational wealth transfer, it's not just 3 generations now, it could be 4 or 5, and people are living beyond the age of traditional retirement. So that brings me to my next question. Can you elaborate on the longevity-based asset strategy and how it actually impacts portfolio performance?
Sure, so when you think about longevity strategies, they should be customized solution to the individual. So when you think about a portfolio, many times today, you go to most asset managers, they're providing you an out-of-the-box solution that says, here's 60-40. That's broke, it doesn't work. The reason why it doesn't work is because you don't know how long you're going to be in that strategy. We provide the key and core most important piece to that. What's the lifespan and longevity within that? As you highlighted, yes, in certain segments, people are living longer. But you know what's interesting? General population data says males are living less long, right? Females actually are starting to decline in longevity. Why? Well, there's a whole myriad of reasons for that, but the point is, life is like an arc, and it's filled with billions of probabilities. It's a curve, it's not a straight line. And then how do you solve for those probabilities, and what can you do to make a difference? We think we're going to give that data back to people so that they better understand how to apply this to the most important asset that they have, which is their financial worth.
And I do want to ask you, while I have you here, about the technology and also the innovations that are helping Abacus scale, and also how is that affecting institutional access?
Sure, so it's really interesting. So we source the contracts. These are uncorrelated underlying contracts that are based on someone's mortality, right? What's broken in the United States is understanding the mortality. Here's what's interesting. In the last election cycle, we heard a great deal about Social Security Administration paying people who had already passed away, right? To the tune of billions of dollars a year. The problem is SSA doesn't know when people pass away. We have actually built the systems so that within 48 hours, we can identify when that has happened, and then we take that data and sell it in a SaaS model back to the pension funds, back to the federal agencies so that they stop making those payments. We have saved certain states millions of dollars in their additional payouts that they were paying that they weren't aware of. So now you take that and apply that not just institutionally to pension funds, but now you apply it to investments, and then you draw it all the way down to the individual. Right? Understanding the mortality data of when things actually occur, help people make better investment decisions on the front end, help institutions make smarter decisions on how they manage their own portfolio, and ultimately saves the states and federal agency millions of dollars in making sure they don't have excess payouts.
Yeah, and Jay, for our viewers out there, with opportunity also comes risks as well as challenges. So what do they need to know?
When you look at Abacus, we're the type of business that most people just don't know about yet. And I like to look at us a bit of an undiscovered gem, because when they first heard about us, they're like, oh, you work on insurance products and then you create this unique asset, that's interesting. But now when you look at the wealth of data and how that applies, one of the things that I think is that we continue to expand our business model into significant recurring revenue, into business lines that are all along the same business lines that we had as our core business, applying lifespan data. I think that investors need to know and understand how big our market is. And this is just such an early stage, but we're not an early stage business. We've been here 20 years. We have revenue year over year that grew at triple digits. Triple, right? With margins as high as 60%. So I think as people look at businesses, they look at businesses like ours that are still a small cap and growing into a mid cap. I think you have more volatility there just in specific types of trading, but what you don't have with us is volatility in earnings, volatility and consistency within our products and within our growth.
And finally, Jay, while I have you here, I have one final question for you. So change is the only constant out there. So what is your vision going forward, and how do you see the industry evolving?
I think the industry is going to evolve where you're taking lifespan-based data and you're applying it to all financial planning. I think financial planning at its core today is broken. I think that it's broken because we're not using the right amount of data. People live in fear. Why is it that we have the lowest savings rate in the world? Think about that. We have the lowest savings rate in the world compared to anywhere else. You know why? Because people don't know what they're buying. They don't know what they're investing in. They don't see the value. What we're trying to tell people is their most valuable asset is themselves and their lifespan, and to recognize that, and they can have an impact on that, and then applying that to financial services. That's the big fundamental change that we're seeing happen in real time. It's impacting our business, and we're sitting on this gold mine of data that we're going to roll this out, and I think make a huge change there.
Well, Jay, great having you here. Thank you so much for joining me, and thank you so much for sharing the story of Abacus.
Thank you.
Thank you.